When did your introduction to Christianity start for you?
Oh, shoot. We're going way, way back. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
All the way. My birth, I was born into Christianity. My parents were pastors of a small church when I was born. So I heard nothing else but Christian teaching since I remember teaching. Like every book we had, because we were pastors, every book we had was a Christian book. So you read a children's story and it was some sort of biblical parable, or you watch like TV and it's Bible Man. And so when I was 4 years old, I remember talking to my parents and being afraid I was going to hell. And I was like, hey, I need to get saved. Can I like pray and become a Christian? And so I think I was at 4 when I met God. And yeah. And then like, I remember like a few weeks later, I went to my parents' bedroom and I was so scared of hell because we just watch so much Christian media and it's hell, hell, hell. So I went into my parents' bedroom and was like crying and wanted to make sure that I had done everything just right. So I was a Christian and I couldn't possibly have missed it and messed up, which I'm just a little bit of a paranoid person. So that was where it started. I've never not been connected.
It's crazy to think that at 4 years old, you can have some sort of connection to God, even though, I don't know, from my own experience, I would say anything before 25 wasn't really real, for lack of a better word, or like actually, it was more just, you're just following on from your parents, right?
Yeah. I think that's interesting for me because my parents were in the prophetic circles and in the circles where you talk to God. And we started traveling when I was younger, as a whole story. But my parents got into prophetic ministry full time and they asked us to try and prophesy as well. So when I was probably like 9 or 10, they told me to try and hear God's voice. And I do believe that I felt connection to God. I do believe that I felt God's voice, heard God's voice sometimes and felt that connection. But I think it definitely changed as I got older. And I think even now I'm still figuring out what feels like God's voice. But I still feel like what I was feeling and hearing back then as a kid, I still feel like that's a part of me, even though I have deconstructed quite a bit. It still feels like the same voice, if that makes sense.
So looking back then at 9 years old, you sort of still look back at those experiences and you're like, oh no, that was real. That was God. Yeah.
I mean, it's hard now, right? Because, you hear stories about how people, you believe anything as a kid, your emotions are shaped to feel those things at those worship services or those summer camps. But yeah, to me, it felt very, just like something connecting with my heart, like a warm hug on the inside. And yeah, I don't think I'll ever let that go fully.
What was your coming out experience like in the church?
Well, it was like a lot older. I think my first experience was when my mom caught me when I was like 13 and she realized I was looking at things and she kind of figured out what I was looking at. She asked me and I told her. And so at that point, my family, my brother and my dad were told too. And so they all kind of knew that I was something. But then I buried it all down, got some counseling, etc., had some interesting therapists, etc.
What do you mean counseling? Counseling for being gay or?
More or less. Yeah, it was like Christian. It was just a few quick sessions, like sozo kind of stuff. It was like little prayer sessions at that point. And then we had one person who was more like a therapist. I don't know if any of these people are licensed, but we just had a few different people talk to me and try and work through anything that might have been attached to me being gay. So that was like 13, 14, 15. And then we just kind of pushed past it. And then I pretended like it never happened. And everybody kind of just pretended like it never happened. And we just acted like I was just going to be normal. And that was just a weird thing that happened. So
the general sort of belief in that your upbringing was that being gay was wrong in your church, but they weren't, you were never like excommunicated or anything.
Well, so here's the thing. And I was going to say, I didn't actually come out until I was 30. Mm-hmm. So that's a whole another part of my story. But if no one's gay, that's the thing about the streams I was in. You're just not gay. No one's gay. Gay is not real. It's just it's a mental, it's a belief. You're believing that you're gay. You're not actually gay. You might be attracted to men, but that's just a phase and you're just confused. So I was never gay when I was in the church. I was just struggling with something. So that's what I also believed. I didn't really own it. I just was afraid of it and was wondering why this thing was this bad thing was attaching to me, why there's this bad part of me, but it's not really me. So I never thought I was gay. And so no one was going to kick me out of the church, of course, for acting effeminate and being a quirky, as they'd call it. I was just different. So I was accepted, but you could tell there were always hints that I should try and be more masculine, do things that were less gay. But because I wasn't gay, I was technically accepted, except by my peers, who I was treated a little oddly by. But
yeah, right. So how did that all affect your sort of identity in your late teens and even 20s, like living as a closeted gay guy?
Yeah. So growing up, I think we were homeschooled because my family was traveling full time. So I was often in environments that were a bit out of normal. I would be traveling, and so we'd be the pastor's kids, we'd be the guest speakers' kids. We'd kind of be a little different than everybody else just by the amount of travel and who we were. And so I realized that like it was already going to be pretty hard to settle in or fit in. Like my brother had a hard time fitting in, and he was very normal and he did okay. But for me, I was also different. I was, gay. And I think other boys especially treated me a little bit like I was almost like I had a scarlet letter. There's like something over my head, and you can't fully, like, you get enough comments growing up where you know that something's wrong with you, but it's hard to really put words to it when you're in a culture that doesn't call anyone gay. You just know that something's wrong. And so I knew that enough about being gay that I knew that could be it. But also I just knew I was getting rejected left and right by everyone I could find. So it was psychologically for me, I was trying to figure out, okay, what am I doing that's making people dislike me? What is this gay thing? Am I gay? Was before I even hit puberty. So I was just like, what's wrong with me that's making people dislike me? How do I fix this? How do I fix these things inside me that are making people reject me? That was all I wanted to do. So it was just it was a struggle. I spent a lot of time alone. I read books. I played video games. I was quite a nerd. I didn't think social connections were for me. I just knew that I was lesser. Essentially I felt lesser, and I'm smart enough to feel it. It wasn't just an idea. I could tell that to these people I was lesser for some reason.
Did you try to be straight?
Yeah, of course.
Talk to me about that. Great name.
So my tactic when I was growing up was to just try and act as normal as possible. And honestly, I wouldn't even really address the interest in boys. Sorry, it's getting hot in here. I'm going to turn on my AC. Don't mind me. New York heat. So I was trying to like girls, and I'd say I'd have crushes on girls, but I never had any physical attachment to any girl or physical draw to any girl. And so I would tell other boys that this is the girl I liked, and I'd play that game, but I never felt an actual pull. And then if I would feel attached to men or to like guys at this time, I'm like a teenager, other teenage guys, and I wouldn't really I would just know that there was something pulling me, but I'd kind of hide that. I'd bury that down. I wouldn't get too close. I'd kind of avoid people. And then also I couldn't really have that many guy friends. So it was really easy to just pretend like we don't know what's happening there, and I'm just not around that many people. So it wasn't as much trying to be straight as it was pretending to not have any feelings about anyone at all and just pretending like I didn't care. And then once I hit my 20s and it was getting weirder to have had no girlfriends, to have had no attachments, then I'm like, oh, the jig is kind of up. I'm going to have to actually do something. And then I started to be lonely and watch more of my friends get married, and have those attractions. And you watch your friends have these relationships, and you start to, you can't avoid it as much. So I think I tried to be straight till about 30, most of my life.
So what led you to finally coming out and accepting yourself as gay?
I think there were a lot of subtle shifts. I grew up in a very evangelical world, and for the most part, I liked it. I had my community there. I'd never seen anything else. I never experienced other cultures because I was homeschooled. And then growing up, going into college years, I went to Bethel Ministry School, which is also a very controlled environment. They're ironically one of the organizations that's still doing like a form of conversion therapy. So ironically, I went to one of the worst places as far as gay ideology because they believe you can heal it. So I kind of laid low there though as well. And then
just explain for the audience that don't know. So you went to Bethel Ministry School. What is that? What do they teach? What was your experience like there?
So Bethel is the Bethel School of Supernatural Ministry, which a lot of people would call it Hogwarts. Ooh. It was labeled. Yeah. It was very, it was that. And people are falling over. There's fire tunnels. Like you'd go to a party and think you're just going to hang out with other people. And people essentially will get drunk in the spirit. And a fire tunnel is like 40 people in a row forming a tunnel with their arms over like this. And they form a tunnel with their arms and you walk through and they pray for you. And then everybody's manifesting, like praying in tongues and like falling to the ground and giggling. And you go to a party thinking you're going to like watch a movie or have like good hang or a pool party. And then all of a sudden everybody's doing that. And you're like, okay, I guess we're at another church service. As a ministry kid, I was like, I live in church. Everywhere is church here. So
you weren't going to parties and getting like drunk on alcohol. You were getting drunk on quote unquote the Spirit.
The Lord.
Yes. Looking back at that experience, do you think any of that was real?
Well, that's a thing with it. Doesn't help that I'm watching Bethel create some pretty bad patterns in a lot of people. So it's hard because it's hard to know. I think at Bethel in particular, there's just a lot of not great fruit, especially with how deep they've gotten in the political stuff and the fact that they're pushing on conversion therapy and they're pretty roughly anti-gay. And then I don't know. I honestly don't know. I feel like spirituality is still something where I'm like, I don't know how God works, and I don't know why I felt God's presence in some places that felt like they had a lot of really bad ideas. But my connection with God has always been like, I felt connected to God there. Now, were those people connecting to God? I don't know. Were those individuals connecting to God and manifesting like that? I don't know. How can you say? I don't.
I mean, you don't want to be judgmental, right? But I actually went to Bethel in, when did I go? It was 2017? No, 2016, something. Okay. I went there. Some preacher was on the pulpit and people were like throwing their jumpers on the stage. Like apparently he had like an anointing or something, or I was sitting next to someone and when he walked down, he blew on someone like, and then she just fell down. And I'm like, I'm questioning today, like, is that like real, or is it just this like weird, like it's almost like a Bethel cult or like an evangelical cult, like this, even the speaking in tongues, like the shada bada bada bada, like all that. I'm like, is that stuff even like legit? Like, is that even connection to God, or is it just this extra stuff? You know how in the Reformation, before the Reformation, the Catholics added on all this extra stuff to Christianity, and that's when the Reformation happened and the Protestants separated from the Catholics. Like that kind of stuff, like all this extra stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like, do you ever question your experience there and you're like, was this even a fire tunnel? Like, is any of this even based in the Bible, or like, what the heck? Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts and feelings about looking back at your experience there?
I mean, being fully transparent and taking off the I don't want to judge people thing, because I know there's people and individual stories where they're connecting to God in those environments, right? But from what I experienced, like one guy I know was manifesting where he's like flopping all over in the spirit, and he was doing it back in his hotel room and he had a Q-tip in his ear, and he blew out his eardrum because he manifested, smashed his head into the bed, and the Q-tip went into his eardrum. That was under the influence of the spirit. And I'm just like, hey, maybe that wasn't the Holy Spirit if you almost destroyed your hearing for life. There were situations like that where people get bruised and bumped. I just don't, I never have manifested in that way where I've lost all control. I remember one time in one of those prayer meetings where I was supposed to manifest, I like got faint because I couldn't breathe very well because there was so much perfume and stuff. I faint pretty easily, and I passed out, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, he's under the Spirit." And I literally felt like I was dying because I passed out. And that's the closest I felt to actually falling under the Spirit. And so for me, I wasn't experiencing that. And I know a lot of people that say they were experiencing that are now atheists or out gay, etc. And I'm just like, the kind of people you drew there were the kind of people that want something like that to happen. If you want something like that to happen and you feel something, you can move your body in those ways. It doesn't, if I was to guess, it doesn't feel real to me. And so that's my gut feeling. And it was hard because you're in those environments and you almost feel bad for not manifesting and you want to fake it, because if you're not doing weird things, saying weird things, acting drunk, you feel like you're the odd one out. Like,
yeah, you're excluded. Yeah.
Like you didn't get like you're a muggle, like you didn't get chosen as one of the Harry Potter elites, you know, you're not magical. So you almost want to fake it. And I found myself like swaying sometimes and getting into it, and it didn't feel authentic. And then the fruit from all of that, like, what are we doing here? We're in a small town where we're not really ministering to anybody. Most of the people that leave this environment don't keep doing ministry. It's just like a forgotten blip in their lifetime. And so all we're doing is acting silly and maybe feeling God. I don't know, but what's the fruit? What's the fruit from that? Like, I'm not seeing it. And then with the miracles, there were supposed to be miracles everywhere at Bethel. In the healing room, there's statistics that everyone would get healed if you did this, or this person saw everybody healed this way or that way. And we'd have people that would stretch out their legs and they'd pray and they'd be like, see, his leg just grew out. But then that's a pretty easy wiggle depending on how you're sitting. And they'd say one person's leg is longer than the other. So you need to pray for that. And they'd be like, they always get healed when I pray for it. And I would just see it and be really practically minded and think, no, this didn't happen. I can see that the legs didn't change shape. There was so much of that I've been in miracle culture for 30 years, and I've never seen a quantifiable miracle. And so that for me is like, okay, if this is what you're claiming, if you're claiming that all these people are under the Spirit, but I can tell that a lot of them are faking it at the very least. And if you're saying all these miracles are happening, but then I've never seen a proven miracle and I'm in this culture for my whole life, it's hard for me to really believe it at this point. I don't want to say God doesn't do it, but at Bethel, it definitely felt like there's so much bad fruit, and then the good fruit that they're claiming isn't really looking very real. So what does it become then? What is Bethel at that point? And why are we, it became a new denomination, honestly. Like Bethel felt like its own separate or cult could be used. I mean, I've seen it do some pretty interesting things to some people's lives. So it's a tricky one. It's still something I'm sorting through, but I would not do it again.
What was your main takeaway from going to Bethel?
You know, the funny thing was I went there as a little awkward homeschooler that had been rejected so much. And I think Bethel was an environment of so many artists and a lot of actually queer individuals that were all closeted. But I found people that let me be loud and fully express myself and enjoy me. So I felt empowered to really put myself out there. So I think for me, it was really a lot of self-growth. Did I feel more connection to God than I did before? No. And did I learn much? No. I was a pastor's kid. The Bible stuff they're teaching was very basic. I had learned more in my stupid homeschool stuff. And my spiritual encounters with God felt stronger at home, or, same strength. So it was just personal growth that I probably could have had in any school. It was just honestly the process of being away from the parents. So I didn't get much from Bethel, except some friends and some self-growth.
Okay, so you left Bethel. When, talk to me about, you came out at 30 years old. What happened
in between that time, so I left Bethel at like 22, whatever, worked at Jesus Culture for about 5 years after in Sacramento. So
What's
then I
that?
stayed in this atmosphere. Jesus Culture. It started out as Bethel's youth group, and then they went viral on YouTube, had giant conferences, blew up. So they started church in Sacramento. I went from Redding to Sacramento to maybe get involved. And so then I did a 5 or 6 year segue there. But what happened was I stayed very deep in that culture. And this at this time, I'm getting my late 20s. And that's when I was really realizing I'm not meeting anybody that's catching my eye. No girls are making me want to date them and touch them or like have physical contact with them. And I know, right? That sounds bad.
I like the way you worded it. It's fine.
Right?
It's fair,
no, I stopped,
right?
I cut off midway. So I just I did not want to get physical with girls. And I'd feel the idea made me anxious thinking about like pretending like I like a girl. Cause a girl doesn't want a guy who's like, yeah, we can hang out. It's fine. A girl wants a guy that actually feels attraction to them, obviously. And so me pretending to, and so trying to pursue someone when I didn't felt so disingenuous. It felt crazy. But at this point, I'm like, well, I got to figure something out. So I got to figure out if I can date girls. I'd been tossing that ball down the road, kicking that can down the road of like, I don't think I like girls, but if I don't actually test this fully, I'll never know for sure. So I can just leave that anonymous. Well, I remember in young adults group, which I was leading young adults group for a little bit. And someone asked me, Nate, are you looking to date? And I'm like, no, I'm happy alone. Cause I just didn't want to talk about it. I was very personal. The fact that I didn't like girls. I don't want other people to know. So I started dating. I just pushed myself through it, force of will. And it was so awkward. This girl was so confused. One of my leaders in my church pushed me. They essentially, the church found out that I was attracted to men and like had these whatever feelings. And so they kind of took me in and tried to send me to more counseling. And then also they're like, hey, there's this girl you should try and date. So this girl's in the church. She was younger, hadn't dated much either. And so I started trying to date her. And so we went on a few dates and I felt so uncomfortable. I first did not feel any pull towards her. But I just went on these dates anyways, hoping that the attraction would form. And there was nothing there. I just wanted to get away. And I hated the pressure that I would have to, at some point, give her feelings that I like her. That it felt like I was lying to her, even though it was exactly what my pastors told me to do. So those experiences were awful. I had a few like that. And it always ended with me being like, yeah, I just don't feel like we're the right for each other or something. And they'd be devastated because I'd done a decent enough job acting on it that they believed I liked them, even though I felt no attraction. With one girl, I started cuddling and I literally wanted to leave my body. Like I felt so uncomfortable in my body, like my body's lying. And I felt claustrophobic. I just want to get away from this person so bad because I knew I'm not attracted to this person. This person thinks I am, and I'm cuddling with her. And she feels like this is real. And I just hate this with every inch of my body. So those moments, I'm going through this and I'm like probably 27, 28. And I'm feeling horrible. I'm feeling awful for putting girls through this for literally no reason. I'm confirming to myself that I cannot like a woman very, very conclusively inside. And it just makes me feel like utter shit. And meanwhile, the church has gone very political. I just wasn't really liking how into politics the church had become all of a sudden. It was like 2017, 2018. And I'm watching everything just get really kind of hostile, and the church being more of a focus on being political rather than being a source of love and charity, which is what I thought we always were. Like church to my family, we were always trying to help people, trying to bring people out of situations that were bad. And all of a sudden, it felt like the church's focus is more to affect the influence in the country. So all this is happening, and I'm watching some of my friends who are minorities feel a little bit mistreated by the church and the political movement. I'm like, hey, we could be doing this better. This feels weird. So I was also getting I'm having some bad times in my church. Like there was no HR at the job I was at. And I was watching the church, which is supposed to be a family. It's supposed to be this movement around love again. And the way it was treating its employees was pretty rough. And so all of these little things that had stapled this idea of what God was, what church was, were starting to shift. I was starting to not just believe everything I was feeling. And then the therapist I was going to, we had this big moment where this therapist was trying these different things to help me not be attracted to what I was attracted to. And then he basically gave up and was like, hey, I think you just need to take a 3-month break from thinking about any of it. And I'm like, I've tried that before. So I realized my therapist wasn't going to get anything. The church ideologies were not working out, and the church was not treating me very well. So all of my beliefs that I'd had since 3 years old of this being everything, and this being the right way, and this being good and perfect, and my own understanding being wrong, all of a sudden I was starting to realize the church doesn't have everything perfectly right. And if I can't use them to be my total guideline for everything, maybe I actually have to use my own judgment at some point, which I had not allowed myself. And so that's all kind of culminating all at once. All of my ideas of what life was and what life was supposed to look like are all coming to a head all at once.
So why stay a Christian, Nate? Why not just leave the church altogether?
Yeah. So, well, after that happened, I did come out finally. I came out hesitantly because I wasn't positive that God was okay with it. So first, I never really believed God wasn't real. I never fully let go of God. I don't think there's been a moment where I've fully let go. I think there's just been moments where I've kind of thrown it all up in the air at once. So I guess what kept me a Christian is probably the presence I encountered in the small voice in my heart when I was just a kid and so full of despair and darkness. And I felt a comfort, and it felt tangible and real to me. And it was just the quiet voice saying you're going to be okay in the middle of the world just rejecting me, the world deciding that I didn't belong there. I think it felt like love. I guess I felt, and I don't want to do anything retaliatory in the way that I choose my beliefs in life. I want to do things based on what my gut and heart feel. And I've never been able to get over that sense of connection that I felt to something. So even though so much of the church just treated me like a punching bag and made my life a living hell, I just can't fully shake that connection, which didn't feel like the church. It always felt like something else. And I wasn't going to give that up just because people tell me that's what was hurting me. Because I think I can tell the difference between that connection to my faith, my spirituality, and this religious corporation that has been a terror in my life.
That's a good word, religious corporation. I've never heard that before. I always say structure, but corporation. Yes. Well, it also brings up the question of, why should you let go of something that brings you peace because of the church's interpretation of it, you know?
Yeah.
I suppose I'm now interested in sort of what led you to start your podcast, I Tried to Be Straight, which is a podcast that you have where you interview gay Christians who have sort of had negative experiences in the church, or positive ones, but just to broaden people's view on that intersection, faith and sexuality.
It's crazy how hard it is to see any form of light when you're in this as a teenager or even as an adult. it feels like there's so few people that are talking from this perspective where they've lived this life and now they're openly living this new life. And I think when you're in the church, it's framed in such a way that being gay means giving up everything about yourself, becoming this totally different person, shaking away everything. And then also it just feels like it's going to be gross. It's going to be slimy. It's going to be scary. And I realized that my conceptions about it, what it was, were so different than my lived experience coming out. And then also I'm so upset that I went through so much meaningless pain. I'm so upset that my childhood was, my life was really bad. Like I had a really, really bad childhood for no reason except for my hating my own sexuality. And I was like, why was it so hard to hear anything else? Why was it so hard back then to find another voice, to find out this information about what it actually is like, to have a clear idea of what it would be like if I accepted my sexuality and have a clear argument for the other side, regardless of which one I chose. That was so out of touch for me growing up. I wanted to change that for anyone else that wanted a way in, or at least to explore and think about it, even if they're not going to come out, but just to understand that there are people like them and feel safety. I think I just want people to find freedom that I couldn't find for 30 years.
Yeah, and it seems like you guys are making quite the impact. I mean, I think you've been doing it for now 2 years.
About 1
Less
year
than that. Yeah.
We started last February. So 1 year, or March, 1 year and 3 months. Not long.
Yeah, wow.
And I did a TikTok before that. Yeah.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I had about a year. I had about like 8 months of TikToking, and that got some decent followers pretty fast. That's kind of where, like, that was kind of the trial. That was where I was like, okay, I gotta do something after this. So the podcast felt like a more meaningful version of that.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say though?
I totally forgot. Well, I'm just saying, putting yourself out there, broadcasting your life and elevating, people like us, it kind of changes you. Like, how has it been since you've started the podcast to now?
Yeah, I mean, I think you could probably relate. I think this journey, getting vulnerable, if you're up for it, if you're in a good emotional state for it, can be really helpful. I think sharing my story helps me feel like I'm not crazy, and having other people confirm that I'm not crazy, because for so long you feel like you're all alone. This world is very isolating if you're queer in the church. And so realizing there's so many people, and there is something validating about people hearing your story and saying, oh yeah, I went through a story like that, or, oh, I'm sorry that happened. That's actually very real. It almost takes over all those years of me thinking I'm not actually gay. Yeah, this is fake. Like all those years of feeling like nothing I felt was valid. I was just this whatever, very like messed up person. That's something. But then also I've learned a lot, and I've dug into this a lot more than I planned to. I'm not really someone who's super into theology. I've been in the environments, but I'm not someone who is necessarily a learner where I want to just learn everything I can about something. So because I've been doing this podcast, I have learned from some brilliant people and talked to some people that are way smarter than me, and had really good discussions and conversations, and made a lot of friends along the way, especially Susie, like the way we connected and have had so much love for each other. And we've both grown each other. So it's really grown me and stretched me, and honestly showed me some of my blind spots just as a human and as a conversationalist, and helped me grow. So it's funny because we've had a bit of momentum, and who knows what will happen next. This could just be a flash in the pan, or this could be something I have some involvement in for the rest of my life. But it's like, to just be a guy just doing this, and then all of a sudden be talking to this many people all over, it feels like even this small like little chunk of success you've gotten feels surreal. Like how am I doing this right now? It's just wild to be in this journey.
I'm wanting to know, like, do you think the church is becoming more accepting of gay people, or it's got more of a backlash now? Like, how do you see the church and the intersection of faith and sexuality, especially where you are in New York or America?
Yeah. It's hard. I feel like parts of the gay culture are being more accepted in some churches, but I also feel like it's become a bit of a political issue to push against it. It's become so politicized. I guess it's always been politicized. I'm newer to this side of it, so it's kind of shocking this last few years of how many people are pushing back against it. And even Gen Z, especially like the guys, a lot of them are pushing back against it. And so it makes me feel a little nervous. I don't know fully what's going to happen next. I think a lot of the churches doubled down on pushing back because it's felt like it's being attacked. It feels like the right has felt attacked by the wokeness or whatever word. And so to accept any of it would be wrong. Whereas I think they were kind of accepting it before, and now it's like they feel like they have to protect their culture, their children from the attack of the LGBTQ. And yeah.
I mean, there has been a little bit of an overcorrection in the LGBT, activism in the last few years, which even I notice a lot of gay people are pushing back against. But I suppose it's more like, I wonder if we've sort of done ourselves a disservice there, but it's like, it's just the natural way the culture has unfolded. I suppose I'm wondering, I wonder how, because I mean, the whole right-wing Christian argument is, or not even right-wing, but just like the whole argument is I'm defending the truth of scripture. Like that's it. But it's just this one issue. Like it's like, what else are you going to defend? Like the love? Like, for anyone out there, who is gay and Christian, I wonder, what do you think the best way to respond to the church's, or the culture's actions of trying to push back against gay people being accepted in the church? Yeah,
like how should we respond?
Yeah.
Or how should the church respond?
I suppose, like, how do you respond? Like, how does an individual gay person trying to be a Christian respond to that?
Well, that's the hard thing. I've talked to a lot of people that want to stay fully in their churches and communities, and then they have to get fired. Like, feel attacked by these messages that come into play every couple of weeks or every few months. All of a sudden, there'll be a sermon that totally roasts them, and they'll feel unsafe. And it's hard for me to want to encourage someone to stay in those communities or those churches, because you're supposed to be building community there, and you don't feel like all of you is accepted, So I think we are winning just by existing, and I think we have to. I think as a gay person, you're not able to fully just go down a predetermined path like other people. I think most people, when they live their lives, they can just stay in the culture they're in, not challenge anything, live a normal life, never have to really think about these deep questions, right? When you're gay, you might have to be in a community. You either have to choose to stay in a community where you're going to constantly get comments about what's wrong with you and what the lifestyle you're living, or you have to kind of reset your community, or you have to teach your community about it. So a lot of us, I would say it's not something everyone is easily able to do, but find community that actually will support and love all of you, because otherwise you're constantly making sacrifices for them. You wouldn't be in a group of friends that said, hey, you like have this weird thing where you like scratch your nose too much and it's like annoying. Like you touch your face too much. Like, I think you're probably going to need to stop doing that, or I might not want to be around you. I would not want to be near those people, because if you are that like, you have to fix me. There's something about me that you have to change. Like, why would I be in a community that's not accepting me for everything I am? And so I think first I would say for people that are in those circles and those churches, consider changing your circle up, because it will be hard. And I know some of us are introverts and that's really hard, but what kind of life are you living? What kind of friendships are you building if you can't be yourself? And so I would say find a church that is affirming. I think just even when I've been in lows and highs of my spiritual journey of like, I don't even know if God exists, to like, I feel like he's something, to whatever, I've gone to affirming Christian churches where I've felt God and I felt that connection. And then also I feel them affirm my identity and say, everyone is welcome here. And I just started crying when I was in that environment for the first time, because it felt like I could have this part of my childhood and my life and also be fully me and not be fighting with it. Because every time in a church, it was like a war zone of, God, I love you and I'm sorry that I have this thing, to now being in this place where it's like, God, I love you and this is this piece of me and you love that too. That was so healing. So I guess what I'd say to really answer your question is, to the church that's like, when you're dealing with this church that doesn't make you feel safe and seen, it feels like it's attacking you, I'd say the number one thing is you're not trying to fight this battle for everyone else. Your life is the most important part. I think us just living our lives is what matters the most. If you feel inspired to join the fight, sure, but no one should have to. No one should have to join a fight just because they exist in a certain way. Some of us have chosen to engage in this fight and deal with some persecution, but I would encourage most people not to. I would encourage most people to just get space from people that are not treating you well. If someone's bullying you in any other facet, you'd get space from them. But when they're bullying you for your sexuality, we accept it with open arms and say, oh, they're just struggling. And I know Christian ideology is hard to just snap out of, but if they can't treat you with love and for the way you're living your life, which does not affect them in the slightest, if the church is treating you like some sort of garbage, then you get space and find a church that treats you well. It's just hard. It's hard that we have to leave our communities. And I don't know if that fully answered the question.
It's such a weird way to word it, but I just think it can be such a beneficial thing to not be accepted and to have to do the digging. Because It can enrich your spiritual journey later on, to actually be like, okay, well, what is God? Like, who is God? Like, what? None of this, church structure or what did you call it? Corporation? Corporation.
Church corporation.
Yeah. Like, you just actually, well, let's get into the spirit. I mean, part of me wonders is the what is it? The resurgence of Christianity. I think it's outside the church. I really think it's outside the church.
It's not just for this issue. It's for these mega churches that have billions of dollars and they're buying jets and all this stuff. And it's like, okay, what is the point of this thing? What are we doing at this building? Are we having a show? This is a concert. Yeah. Like, what's the deal
Light
here?
Show, shabba-da-da-ba-da.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Stop doing that. All right. Well, let's wrap this up. What is the next big thing for you, Nate? Or where's your journey? Where on to here? What's happening with I Tried to Be Straight? You're in New York. You've moved to the Big Smoke. What's next for you?
Well, I think I'm trying to live my life. That's been my number one. Is I don't want to. I gave up so much of my life for the ministry growing up, being a pastor's kid. So much of my life was ministry. So I think I don't want to do that again, and I want to make sure that I'm giving my life priority. But with all of these things, I think there is something in the works potentially for a few months from now that will be like another potential side project. So I'll make sure I inform people early. But I think I'm going to be in the space for at least another little bit. There's some fun stuff in the works. So yes.
Lovely. All right. Well, I'll put your details in my show notes and the I Tried to Be Straight podcast, which I was lucky enough to be a guest on last year.
Yeah. Watch that episode. That was super fun.
Well, thank you so much, Nate. It's been really good to talk to you.
No, you too. Thanks for having me. Honored.